Hey everyone, I hope everyone is doing well. In this video, we're going to be looking at how to complete a square. I know a lot of students struggle with this, but I hope you'll be able to see that it's actually just super simple. So I've put the four main steps that we use at the top right. I have started at 0 intentionally, and that's because that's something we do a pre-check before we get into the main nitty-gritty of it. So we make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. So in this first example, you'll see that the coefficient of x squared is 1. So we're all good there. So this step is done. Now what I like to do is I'd like to rewrite this step, rewrite the example rather. But what I like to do now is put brackets in here because we're going to be making a bracket. So we make this bracket. What we do now is instead of x squared, we write x. And now we get into our steps. So what we do is we keep the sign. What's the sign here? Negative. We keep that sign. Now, the second step, we half. So we're going to half the 6. What is half of 6? 3. And we don't write this x, we just close this bracket, and we square this bracket, because we're completing the square, we square it. And now what we do is, I'm going to use a different color, but it's the same line. So everything is the exact same. So my 8 stays the same, but step 3, what I have to do now, I have to take away. So a minus, but what do I take away? I've just created this negative 3 squared. So I need to take away negative 3 squared. Because in creating the square, there was no negative 3 squared up above. So I've fabricated it rather to get this power of 2. So I have to take it away because I've made it. I've invented it out of nowhere. So we have to take it away. So we minus it. And this is equal to 0. So if we keep rocking with what we have here, we're going to get that the bracket doesn't change at all. This still is an 8. And what this becomes is this negative 3 squared, which is 9. So we get minus 9 is equal to 0. And if we keep evaluating this, we get that it's minus 1 is equal to 0. And we can just take that minus 1 to the other side, and we get this. See, it's super simple. Now let's look at a problem where the coefficient of x squared isn't 1. It changes a bit and can be a bit more challenging, but it's the exact same steps. Let's have a look. In this example, you'll see that the coefficient of x squared is not 1. So we have to do something here in step 0. So to get rid of that 2, we just divide everything by 2. And if we do that, we're going to get x squared plus 11 over 2x plus 5 over 2 is equal to 0. So again, I like to put my brackets here. And if I do that, we're going to now be getting into the meat of it. So instead of this x squared, I write an x. Now my first step, I keep the sign. So my sign here is x. So I write an x. Now for my second step, I need to half. So I take 11 over 2 and I need to half it. But halving is the same as timesing by 1 over 2. And I write my square. Then I write this number, 5 over 2. But what I have to do now in step 3, I have to take away my creation. So I say minus, and my creation is 11 over 2 times by 1 over 2 squared. So remember, this whole thing over here is something we've creating. So that's why we have to take it away over here. So you'll see these are the exact same, but what's special is this minus because we're taking it away, this thing that we've just created. All right, so if we evaluate this in the bracket, we're going to be getting 11 over 4 all squared plus 5 over 2 minus, and this is going to be 11 over 4 all squared. And if we keep rocking with this, now, if we distribute that square, it's going to be 121 over 16. So I forgot to put all of this equal to 0. So remember, because it's an equation, equal to 0. So don't forget those zeros. Sorry about that. But what I need to do now is I need to combine these two fractions. So I have to get an LCD, and I have to times this 2 by 8 and the top by 8. If I keep going with this doesn't change at all. So that stays exactly the same. But now this is 40 over 16. 16 minus 121 over 16 is equal to 0. I didn't forget the equals to 0 this time. And now what we get is we get x plus 11 over 4 squared. If we evaluate this, we get minus negative 81. So minus 81 over 16 is equal to 0. And what I can do is I can just take this to the other side. I'll get x plus 11 over 4 squared is equal to 81 over 16. So not too bad. This one was a bit more challenging because you had to work with some fractions. But again, it's super easy when you see what's happening. And I hope that the explanations could help. So thank you guys for watching, and I wish you guys all the best.